How's it going, everyone? Let's talk a little bit today about, let's talk about some things about Christianity, I guess, right? Just who we are as people, period. There's a lot of people who are Christian or say they're Christian, claim they're Christian, they have the Christian beliefs, but they don't really go to church, they don't really practice Christianity, they just say they're Christian because, well, they grew up in a Christian home, right? And then we got some people who are pretty hardcore Christians who think they have all the answers. And, the danger is we need to understand what's real. God's word is real. One thing is, take a look at Ecclesiastes chapter 8. Just read through that and we'll understand it. Don't matter who you are. What's that scene out of Bill and Ted's? You might be a king or a city street sweeper, but sooner or later you'll dance with the reaper, right? We all go to the grave. And in the end, we take nothing with us. Everything we have done here, we will be judged in the end for everything we've done here in this life. And King Solomon touched on that. One thing about Solomon is, if we study his life, he started out great with God, and then he got mixed with all these women, and his several wives took him away from God, and he started practicing other religions and stuff. And here's a man that so much knowledge, wisdom, wealth, everything beyond. He was in his time the man that had everything that no one else, right? And the thing is that in the end he realized it's all vanity. It's all vanity, saith the preacher, right? And it is. Everything here is vanity. Everything we're doing is vanity. And he, realized that when he comes to the end of his life and, writes about the wisdom to share the wisdom, and he sought out all the things, and in the end he found out that to please God is the most important thing, because the rest is all vanity. And whatever you partake in, you don't know whether right now you're not thinking about it, and you're falling into sin and ignoring God and all this stuff, and in the end we're going to answer for it. But then we have so in the Christian communities, no matter what denomination you are, we got to get right to where it's at, right in the book, right? Here's the problem, especially here in America. It's with the Bible, it's everywhere, but the two here for us Americans, right? The two most misunderstood and controlled documents are the Bible and the U.S. Constitution, right? Both of those things are written in plain English, but easy to understand, plain, like you have the Bible. I say plain English, but it's written in plain language, right? You don't have to be a wise man, super wise man, to understand these things. You don't need to, we come up with lawyers and everything else to interpret the Constitution. Once that starts happening, then all of a sudden people start twisting what this stuff really means. As for example, the Second Amendment, okay, shall not be infringed. But now we got all these people trying to interpret what they meant in the Constitution. Well, they meant that if the government has weapons, you also can have those weapons. That's what plain English, right? Common knowledge. So is the Bible. And so one of the things we got going on in Christianity is there's this big argument over works-based, faith-based, and everybody gets it all out of context and get too much Everybody's worried about arguing their points and that they're right with God, or their views are, instead of just teaching what the Word says. The preachers out there are supposed to be teaching what the Word says properly, not, you got all these people out there with their interpretations of it. So, because we get to like Saturday is really the Sabbath day, but, especially here in America, Christians aren't following that. All over the world, they're trying to make it Sunday. And here in America, it's always been Sunday, for most of us, we always knew it as Sunday, right? But it should be Saturday. It don't mean you can't go to church on Sunday. It means you're not supposed to be working or causing other people to work or sinning or causing other people to sin on Saturday. That's the Sabbath day, the holy day of God, his day of rest. And that's when we're supposed to acknowledge it. But you got all these people, the New Testament's here, and that don't matter, and the old laws don't matter, and on some of the old laws where they came from man don't matter, but the Ten Commandments absolutely does matter. Okay, we'll go to Matthew. We'll just check Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy, but to fulfill. Right? That's Jesus. Those are the words in red there. That's Jesus saying that. And he's telling us, I didn't come to destroy the law. Just because I'm here means that law ain't destroyed. It ain't destroyed until it's fulfilled. He came to fulfill. And in the end, very end, then it will be completely fulfilled. Until then, it's not completely fulfilled. He fulfilled so much of it. He died for our sins and all that. That's true. And we can't get to heaven without accepting Jesus. That's all true. It's got to be faith-based. But when you have that faith, you will have the works in you. When your faith is truly, when you're intending to please God, you will understand that he still expects you to follow those commandments, right? So Saturday is the Sabbath day, and that's just one example. But, and so I gave you the chapter and the verse, and we need to realize also that the Bible wasn't written that way with verses and all that. These are books, right? Like Matthew is a book. That's just one book. The whole Bible is one big book, and we read the Bible, it gives us the whole history from beginning till now, and we see what the whole story was, right? That, we keep falling away from God, right? Jesus is the final answer for that. And, but the Bible wasn't written in verses like that. And, like Matthew is one book and Luke is one book. So today I already did, most of today's video is going to be about Luke chapter 16, last half of Luke chapter 16. In a previous video, I already covered like most of the first part because of whatever subject I was talking about. So today I'm going to talk about Luke chapter 16, and we'll be starting at verse 15 on. And because so we got to understand these things about the law and what God truly means and what Jesus truly means. He did not come to change the law. And here in this, what we're going to get into, he doubles down on what you already heard in Matthew that we just talked about, right? The thing is, he did not come to change the law, right? So we have, but we need to realize that when Jesus spoke to us, and and when we got the final Bible, when he spoke to us and gave us, like in parables, those parables oftentimes answered whatever that certain subject was at the time. But if we read it, he answers many other things. When he speaks to us, if we just sit for a minute, clear our minds of everything else, and listen to what Jesus says to us, that's God telling us himself, and he answers so many questions within certain, like Luke chapter 16 answers so much, right? So anyways, because, so the law, I know people that, one thing is, and not everybody claims to be Christian, but, if you want to get to God, you got to become a Christian, right? And, but one of the things is, God don't like witchcraft, witchery, like spells, Ouija boards, tarot cards, readings like that, palm readers, any of that kind of stuff, crystals, sage. Not all of it is necessarily bad. If you have sage, just to have sage is one thing, but if you have it for the purpose of what they use it for in witchcraft, then that's wrong, and you should not be doing that. Crystals, the same thing. You could have crystals, but you can't be using it for the purposes that they're telling you, that the general people are using it. It's witchcraft, right? And that's just one more thing. He did not come to change the law. All of this, you have Jesus only. That's what you need. Jesus only, and, we'll get into other subjects later, but let's continue on with this because, let's, first of all, there's several subjects we can answer with this Luke chapter 16, and that's what we're going to do today. One is that he did not come to change the law, and two, we could consider like witchcraft and stuff like that, speaking with the dead. God does not want us communicating with the dead, but we can. But how is it okay? We can find everyone that if they're true to the Bible, they're going to tell you, no, that's not okay. You cannot be talking to the dead. There is one way you can communicate, and we'll get to that in a minute. But let's go ahead and start with. We're going to start on verse 15, Luke chapter 16, starting on verse 15. So like I said, I already covered most of the first half of that chapter in another video. So otherwise, you can read that for yourself to come up to speed where what he's all talking about. But here's Jesus speaking, right? And so, verse 15, and he said unto them, he's talking to the Pharisees who they keep trying to tempt him to make him mess up and question him with all this stuff, right? He said unto them, ye are they which justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your hearts. For that which is highly esteemed among men is abominable in the sight of God, right? So and you can take that today's terminology, all the Christians doing all these things to look great in the sight of people, like they're a great Christian, and God knows the heart, and he knows the real truth. And it all speaks for itself. The reason Christianity has such a bad name right now is because all the false prophets and teachers out there, right? Okay. And he says, the law and the prophets were until John. Since that time, the kingdom of God is preached, and every man presses into it. Jesus is the kingdom of God, right? Every man presses into it. That's the way you're going to get, right? It is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than one tittle of the law to fail, right? That's what heaven and earth will pass away before any part of his word, the law, fails, right? So what's that telling you right there? The law still matters. There's people running around, Christians, and oh, well, you're saved. Half of you ain't saved like you think you are. And when I say you, I'm not, please don't take offense to that, right? But the general thing about it is, there's a great majority of them that claim to be saved that are not. Okay, because if they are saved, they will realize that, yes, I need to, but my faith in Jesus, okay? But from there, if my faith is proper, I'm going to have those works, and I'm going to follow that law. What don't people understand? Jesus loved you enough to give his life for you. He will, so you have to love him enough to follow his way. And he says, learn from him, look to him, believe on him. And if you do that, and if you look at that, then you see that how he lived, and he followed the sinless law. He was the only one able to do that. And we can get to that, but I mean, what don't we understand about that? That it's our duty to love him that much, right? And why wouldn't we? Okay, because people say, I've been in hard times in my life, and there's people that say, hey, you have plenty enough reason to give up and all that stuff, right? with how things been, and my thing is, it's about the faith. I'm going to keep the faith. But why am I pushed stronger to God and out of the world? And that's the thing, we're being called out of the world, but we keep trying to be part of the world, right? Well, that's not what and people, a lot of people don't even like my way of doing things, but I'm pulling myself out of the world. That's the way it is, okay? But because I truly understand for once that, and it was just, not like in Jesus's circumstances, right? But I understand what it's like for betrayal of the people you loved. I understand what it's like to say that, to love somebody enough that I will give my life for you, but with a kiss, you will betray me and hand me over to the enemy. Oh, nothing made me realize how wrong I've been, falling away, than when that happened. Because then I realized that, what happened to Jesus on the cross was supposed to happen to me. He done that for me, and I've turned from him several times, right? And now I truly understand how hurtful that is, because I totally understand, not to the whole extent that he's gone through, but that alone is sharp enough knife, right? So, people don't understand it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than one tittle of the law to fail. Whosoever putteth away his wife and marrieth another committeth adultery. And whosoever marrieth her that is put away from her husband committeth adultery. Right? So stop right there. It's not just about adultery, but right there is a big thing that people don't realize. People running around dating and in all these relationships and everything else, and it's wrong. Okay? Your path on this earth, when you're young enough, you're supposed to find that one person and stick with that one person. Together, you become one. The two of you become one. That means you leave your family, your friends, you leave everything for that one person. That's the way it's supposed to be. When one person follows that way, the other one secretly isn't. Eventually, you end up with a serious problem and your world falls apart, right? But, and if we took the commandments, why is that? Well, what is it? Adultery. That's just one of the examples there, right? But he used that as an example. He's not saying just adultery. He's talking about the whole law, right? But because Moses, Moses told them it was okay for adultery because of their hearts, but God said it's not okay. And that's what Jesus is saying. Hey, man told you it's okay because all your guys came together and said this is okay, but it is not okay. You are still sinning. It is wrong, right? Running around this person and that person, it's wrong. And we don't get that. We don't get that. People don't realize you're married, and it's not about the piece of paper that you get from a court, from a government. I mean, it's about where your hearts are at with God. Once you hit a certain spot, you two are entwined and are supposed to stay it, right? You go run around having fornications and adultery and everything else, then you end up attaching all these people's other evil spirits with yours. It's a slope right down to hell. But it's not just, it's not just adultery. That's also Saturday, Now, it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than one tittle of the law to fail. Whosoever, right? That means also Saturday. It means also thou shalt not kill. It also means honor God. All the 10 commandments. That's what Jesus is saying. What don't you understand? I came here to fulfill the law, not to change it. Just because I'm here doesn't mean that, you accepted me. Well, now you can go kill people and murder people, and fornicate and party it up, all this stuff, right? We don't got it right. Okay. But now, and so that also has to do with sorceries and stuff, right? Sorceries is wrong. It's still wrong, okay? It's not just because you accepted Jesus, now it's okay for you to be praying to your dead relative or some so-called saint or, no, you pray to Jesus only, right? Otherwise, the dead are asleep. They are not, so now we'll get into the subject about talking to the dead. They are asleep. Your parents, grandparents, relatives, whatever, that are passed are not sitting around watching over you. This is a big misconception. We're not being watched over by these people. They are asleep. When we die, we're going to be asleep until the great judgment. Then we'll be raised out of that. Unless those of us that are still alive when Jesus returns. But until then, when he returns, like however you want to see the rapture, it's not like a lot of people believe it to be, but when it's going to be the dead rised up first, okay? But until then, they're sleeping. So any spirits out there you're communicating with are evil spirits. It's not your past relatives or something. They are sleeping. They cannot communicate with you. And here we are in Luke chapter, we'll look at this, right? There was a certain, and now we're at verse 19. He goes on, there was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at the gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died, and was carried away by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lift up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. Okay, stop right there. So now we realize when we choose to be evil people and we die, and then there's no more after that. Now there's no more turning around. There's no more. You will be tormented in an everlasting flame, right? Tormented in this flame. That's the rich man calling out to Abraham. But now listen, let's keep going. Verse 25. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime received thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But he is comforted, and thou art tormented. Right? Because now Lazarus, the beggar, being trampled over on the streets by the rich people, by the wealthier people, he's now being comforted in heaven, receiving his reward, right? Because he chose to continue being a good man, right? But hold on now, now verse 26, and besides all this, between us and you, there is a gulf fixed, a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. Then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou wouldst send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they come also unto this place of torment. And Abraham said unto him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, Nay, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto him, If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded through one rose from the dead. Right? And that's the end of that chapter. I was going to go on with but we'll go into 17 with some other stuff later. But what do we take from that? Okay, so he's telling us there's a great gulf fixed. It's not allowed. Okay, no, Lazarus can't come and cool your tongue, because he's here now receiving his reward. And there's a great gulf between us. We can't go there and you can't come here, right? Between us. And it is forbidden that he would go be sent. His peace would be disturbed, and he would be sent, Lazarus would be sent to the rich man's home, father's house, in the spirit, to go to them and say, hey, your brother Lazarus burning in hell. He wants me to let you know so you don't. That's not allowed. Okay? It's not allowed. There's no speaking. Once you speak to spirits or whatever, once you try to communicate with the dead, now you are openly inviting evil spirits in, and they will pretend to be whoever it is, right? And we can go back to I mean, way back in the Old Testament. We'll get to that later, but where the Saul went to seer or whatever. He went to a reader or whatever, right? And the prophet, the spirit pretended to be the prophet, which ruined Saul, Saul's soul. Anyways, right? That's how that is. You invite them spirits. You cannot do these things. It's forbidden, and there's a great gulf. It's not, so I assure you, anyone who has past relatives, they're resting in the grave. They are asleep. Once you die, you go to sleep. And when you wake up, it's judgment, right? I assure you, many people, how many, throughout all history, when they're going to be waking up, surrounded with all these people in the judgment, in the great judgment. You're going to be like, whoa, here it is, right? That's, otherwise, any spirit, any readers, any kind of witchcraft like that, it is opening the doorway and inviting evil spirits in. But there is, before we finish this up, but there is ways you can talk to the dead. One way, right? And I consider life, right? I lost my dad. When I lost my dad, his last, when I knew he was dying, I spent every minute with him, every minute. And as he was dying, though, my brother come to visit him, and then even took a picture and then even threw it on Facebook. It kind of upset me because my dad was in an old, frail state. My dad was Superman, right? When I realized that nobody's invincible is when I realized my dad was dying. When his last 2 years finally hit him, I realized because nothing kept that man down, right? That was Superman, the invincible, my superhero, right? That's the truth. And it really took me down but I learned from him, because one thing my brother posted, he's seen him in his old frail state and all that, and he started talking about regrets. My brother's got issues, right? But he's that he don't want to face, right? But regrets, and here's a man with all these regrets. Yeah, my dad did have regrets, right? In his life. We all do. Anyone who tells you no regrets, and that's, some of the stuff subjects for, but if you think you don't have no regrets, then you are not searching yourself out properly, because I assure you, living this life, you will have regrets. Okay. Otherwise, if you have no regrets, then you're probably on your way to hell, right? And that's another thing I need to, we need to. There's people that's another subject, right? There's many people do it. I might as well. I already know I'm going to hell anyway, right? And most of us people say that, or joking around when they say. I don't say that stuff, right? And I try to correct people when they say that. One, you don't know you're going to hell. With that attitude, you do. But the goal is to live so you don't have to, right? But even if you think whatever you've done wrong, a lot of people that say that haven't done all that much wrong, really. They just need to get certain things right. But even if you've done things wrong, you're still alive. If you woke up this morning, then you got another chance to start new today, and where you don't have to go to hell. There's no, I'm already going to hell anyways, right? With that attitude you are, right? So, but back, so my dad, of course, but I watched my dad, I looked up to my dad my whole life, right? So I watched him, as a man face himself. He had a real rough spot for some years in life, right? And when he finally decided to give up the alcohol and give up, his issues, he faced it, but it was a battle. And he battled that the rest of his life, people that have those, and he did it properly for his family, I watched my dad make the right choices. is what the thing is. My brother says, oh, here's a man with all the regrets. No, I watched a man face his regrets before he died. And that's an important thing. Okay, so the way my dad died is different than I've watched some other people die differently. Okay, but my dad had faced his life before he died, years before he died, right? I watched his progress through life, and that's what made me, people can judge you a certain way based on what they think they know, but the truth is, I do my best to try to live a right life, right? And a lot of that I learned from my dad's mistakes and watching my dad fix his mistakes, right? So, in my case, I miss my dad every day, right? And I go to stop by the cemetery often, stop by, say a few words. Now I know he's resting, right? And I'm not going to some seer, palm reader, psych, or none of that stuff to try to communicate with my dad. I stop by his grave sometimes, say a few words, right? I miss him, and there's a lot of stuff I wish I could talk to him about right now. But I know that that's not the way it is. So how do I let my dad speak to me now from beyond the grave? Well, I look at his life, and I see that he was a man that overcame his stuff and that faced down his demons before he died. And that when he was dying, that, he wasn't saying, oh, son, run out and do these things before you die. Make sure you go do this that you always wanted to do. Oh, I wish I could have done this. No, the things my dad wished he wished he would have lived right sooner. Okay, not, oh, he wished he would have took that trip he never got to take, or went to that place he never got to go to, or, all that vanity stuff. He wasn't dying in vain. Okay, so when I think about what issues I have, how would my dad speak to me now? Take a minute, and realize the life he lived and how he overcame those things, and he's going to give me, proper advice, and that's how he speaks to me from beyond the grave, from his life. I reflect on his life, what worked for him, what didn't, what was good for him, what wasn't, right? Now, because I know people on the other end of the spectrum, that someone I was really close to, their parent was dying, and this parent of theirs was also a friend of mine. And when this person died, they didn't face nothing. The day they died, they knew they was dying. Like my dad, they knew ahead of time they were dying. And my dad didn't start changing his life when he found out he was dying. That's the kind of man he was. As he got older, he looked back and tried to fix things, right? But this other person I'm talking about, and I've seen several people this way, I'm just thinking of one in mind right now, went to their grave never facing down their demons. Oh, telling their children, oh, make sure you do this, make sure you live life this way, don't miss out on this. I would have done this, and I regret that I don't get to do that. That's dying in vain, okay? Because the last thing on this person's mind was telling her children, get right with God and make sure you get to heaven, right? Make sure you live properly. Make sure you're good to other people. Be a good person. But that's not how this person died. She went out unhappy with the circumstances, went out, poor me, all this and that. I understand it. It's rough, when you're dying or whatever, but you didn't give no good advice, right? And you lived your life the same exact way up till the very end. All of your relationships went the same way. And, just your life was the same. You never learned or changed yourself. You continued down that path until the very day you died, and even told your children you never showed any form of regret. That's bad. That's bad because there's some of us, I was fortunate enough to have parents that were good people, and at the end of the day, what they care about most is that my soul is going to be saved, and right. where there's other people, they don't even want to believe in this stuff, and the day they die, they give some real shitty advice, which when they're giving it to their children are automatically, we're going to automatically try to remember these people as great people, right? So you take someone on that end of this perspective. So how could this person's children, when they end up in problems, you know, so how would maybe her daughter be like, or son, whatever, you know, be like, oh man, life's really, all this is going on right now, and this is the person I'd like to reach out to and speak to. Well, what would that person be able to, from the grave? You know, if you did it improperly, then you're going to be that person that's saying, Abraham, Father Abraham, please send Lazarus over here to cool my tongue. Right? So, but you see how his response was, please, I never believed in this, and now here I am. Please go to my family that's still alive and warn them so they do not come here. Right? Nobody, but, you know, so this person that never faced down, you know, from the other side of the grave, what would they be saying? No, that's vanity. My son, my daughter, that's vanity. Don't do that. Look at my life. Look at how I continued making the same mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes that I made and make your life turn out the way mine is, right? That's dying gracefully, right? When my dad died, I was proud of my dad as far as I was concerned. He faced down his stuff. I watched all that, but he still, within 2 days before he actually died, he's, you know, told me, be good, do right, you know, made it clear to me, don't live your life with all this vanity, right? We hear other people are dying in vain and giving advice to their children, passing it down, or grandchildren, the people who watched their life. They watched you live recklessly, but they want to remember you as good, so they think half the advice you gave while you was alive, which was shit freaking advice, which will cause people to ruin their lives, but they're holding on to that advice because that's all they remember from you. But if they could speak to you from the grave, so how it is wrong to try to speak to these people past, right, that have that unfinished business. They're just like the rest. They're not roaming around trying to fix that business. They're not haunting anything. They're resting, right, sleeping until that great judgment. But imagine what would they do, you know? So how could that person speak to you from the grave? Look at their life and how they lived and died. You know, they died with every bit of the regret that they lived with. You know, that's not, you know, so the only way we can speak to the dead, there is one way you can speak to the dead. You let them speak to you from the life they already lived. Otherwise, there ain't no saints, nobody else communicating with you. It's either you're communicating with God, He will decide to send angels. You don't get to pray to the angels, pray to the saints. You pray to Jesus, and He will decide if He wants to send help to you, right? But you don't get to conjure up spirits, conjure up the dead, and think that, because then you're just inviting evil spirits into your life. Anyways, let us hear the conclusion on the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every work into judgment, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We'll see you in the next video.